Hi there, Katie Bassey, your trusted realtor, back again delivering these informational videos to you. This one is dear to my heart because it's something that I think is overlooked in the real estate industry. And a little bit about my why. You guys probably heard this before if you've watched my videos. If you're joining for the first time, welcome. Definitely welcome you to subscribe to the channel. So I have a 24-year tutor history. And that has been so rewarding for me to have that one-on-one tutorial experience, that educational feedback, and topple that with the reason that I got into real estate, which was due to a bad lender experience. I love to make sure people are informed so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. Okay, so today's session, let's dive in. And by the way, click subscribe if you find this content very helpful for you. Is about government-sponsored enterprises. Okay, what basically comprises the secondary market for housing. A lot of people don't know about the history, and I just kind of want to make sure that you guys are in the know. That being said, the primary organizations that you hear a lot of are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and Ginnie Mae, and I kind of want to go into the history of that because not a lot of people know that. So when the Great Depression happened in the 1930s, we all know it crashed in 1929. When that happened, there was a huge wave economically in this country, as many of you may know, and that impacted the housing market. So there was a National Housing Act in 1934 that was developed. And it was proposed that there would be a government agency to oversee the housing market. That didn't officially get started, even though it was proposed in 1934, until 1938. And when it did, that was basically the birthplace of Fannie Mae. You'll hear Fannie Mae quite a bit, and what it really stands for is FNMA, Federal National Mortgage Association. Okay, so keep in mind, it was intended to be a government agency to oversee any loans, FHA loans. Let me define what FHA stands for. Federal Housing Administration. Any FHA loans that needed to be bought. Okay, so I have to go into what I mean by bought and why it would be bought in the first place. Whenever you go to, let's say, to a bank and you speak with a lender, that lender is a loan originator. That origination of the loan includes processing your loan, underwriting your loan, and then funding your loan. Now, FNMA steps in when it comes to FHA loans and buys it back from the banks or whatever the entity is that's the loan originator. And it basically backs up the loan. So it's like a guarantee. So FNMA acts as a guarantor for that loan, which is great because a lot of loans can become insolvent if the interest rates go too high, which happened with the savings and loans industry in the 1980s. And I'll talk about that as part of this history tutorial. So FNMA primarily focused on FHA loans, but later it started including VA loans after World War II. So keep in mind, it started in 1938. World War II didn't end until 1945. Okay, so VA loans became pretty popular after that. And so it would back up both types of loans. Now, as a government agency, it operated in that capacity for 30 years. So in 1968, it became privatized. What's the whole point of that? The whole point was to remove its presence from the federal budget. By doing so, it freed it up to take on a role of its own, and there was a split between Fannie Mae and another agency, which we call Ginnie Mae. Ginnie Mae, GNMA, is Government National Mortgage Association, and that primarily focused on providing funding for FHA loans. Okay, so that's a little bit about the history. All of this is going on around 1968. Now, in 1970, there was a publicly traded corporation, which we now still know as Fannie Mae, that became viable. So it went from being a government agency to, in 1968, privatized, and then in 1978, publicly traded. What does that mean? We are a capitalist country. That meant it was open to a variety of loan products, and they set their own terms. There are guidelines that you must follow if you're getting an FHA loan, and I'm going to talk about that in a later video. So with that split, GNMA, unlike FNMA or Fannie Mae, did not back, so let me rephrase that, did not buy back FHA loans, okay? So they provided funding, but they didn't buy them back. All right, so that's a little bit about the history. Now, sometimes you may hear Freddie Mac. Freddie Mac is like the little brother of Fannie Mae. Freddie Mac started in 1970. Keep in mind, Fannie Mae had a good 30-plus year gap or lead on Freddie Mac. Freddie Mac, or the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, was initially designed to be a competitor to Fannie Mae. Okay, so it also focused on FHA loans. However, this is the history that we have with government-sponsored enterprises. The savings and loan industry went through a crisis in the mid-1980s because there were high interest rate spikes in 1979. That's what started it all. And then followed by deregulation. And then there was widespread fraud and insider abuse. So between 1986 and 1989, the Federal Savings and Loans Insurance Corporation actually closed down 296 of these thrifts. That's what they were called back then. And it led to a gap. That hole was, for the most part, at least attempted to be filled by Freddie Mac. Now, in 2008, September 8 to be exact, at 79.9% of these government-sponsored enterprises are controlled by the government. What does that mean for you and I? That means that it is primarily considered a government agency. We're back to that, right? It went through privatization and now back to that. And there are a lot of standards or guidelines. Now, if any state were to administer an FHA or a VA loan under these government-sponsored enterprises, they would have to follow specific guidelines. Each state is able to impose what we call an overlay, which is additional standards that may be required. And I'm going to kind of touch on that in my FHA video. For example, FHA, the minimum credit score is 580. Now, there may be an overlay where, or a more or stricter guideline where borrowers are required to have a FICO score of 620. And the idea is the bare minimum is whatever the government-sponsored enterprises dictate. So that being said, there's a lot that goes into these loan products. And if you ever have any questions about Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or Ginnie Mae, as it's often called, please feel free to reach out to me. My phone number is 661-525-3015. And you're more than welcome to comment on this video as well. If you reach out to me with your specific questions, either text or call, preferably text, I can go ahead and shoot you the response. And as always, I'm your trusted realtor delivering helpful information to you, and I hope that you have a blessed day.